Well, good morning, everyone. It's Sylvia here and Jenny with Wombs with a View. How are you?
I'm good. I feel like in our moments of preparation before we come into this, we just talk about all kinds of stuff, and then we end up here and we're like, "Oh yeah, show. Here we are. What are we doing? Most with a
I
view. What are
know.
we talking about?"
And I changed up the intro. Oh, it's the sound is a bit funny if you're listening to this a little bit. But yeah, so welcome to another episode of Wombs with a View, Maternal Musings with Jenny and Sylvia. I am Sylvia.
I'm Jenny.
Take two. I find that we've moved our days to Friday, and I'm just a little bit giddier. I think we're more tired on Fridays, but giddier. I think you just never know how this show is gonna go.
I think that's perfect because I think one of our main things we've wanted to do from the beginning is take these sort of heavier subjects and make them light. I was telling my class just before popping on here, we're talking about breastfeeding today, and Sylvia and I are out of the. I don't think you're still breastfeeding anybody. I think we're
Yeah.
done with the. We're not.
Yeah, I am done with that. That doesn't happen. I will be honest. Sometimes I check to see if anything comes out. Nothing ever does. So there you go. Just sometimes you hear these things. As doulas, on another tangent here, but sometimes doulas will, if you go to a birth and all of the hormones that are at the birth, you can start menstruating when you're, mid-cycle or something, or you can start relactating. There's some women that, who may not have been out of it as long as I have, and then they start relactating. I'm like, oh my gosh.
That's
So
incredible.
yeah, the body is amazing, amazing. So yeah, breastfeeding challenges and solutions. I added the and solutions just to give people some, some hope.
That's the thing. That's a fear. That's what I saw in my class this morning. I'm like, Sylvia and I are out of this stuff. So we sometimes talk about it in such a blasé way of like laughing about the time where after my first latch, it was as though somebody had taken a teaspoon into my nipples. It's funny now, but it's not funny when you're pregnant. We're going to try not to scare people today, but we'll talk about some of the challenges and the main issues that come up. And then, as Sylvia said, some solutions and some possible preventative measures we can take to, can minimize some of these issues.
So, question I have for you: did you prepare for breastfeeding while you were pregnant? And if you did, what did you do?
Are you asking me?
Mm-hmm.
And please, if anybody's watching and has answers to any of these questions or stories, whether they're horror stories or funny stories or questions, chime in. No, I didn't prepare because I didn't, and I still don't really think there's much we can do to prepare. Those wives' tales of like, frotting your nipples with, don't put sandpaper on your nipples. Not a good idea. There's one tip I have for preparation, but what about you? Did you prepare?
I got a great book, and I'm looking at my shelf, and it's called Breastfeeding, and it was a great book, a really simple book to read, and had some illustrations. And yeah, that was all I did was read that book, and it got me into a really positive frame mind of breastfeeding. And I don't recall being worried about it, but I know in our client base of doulas and prenatal classes, a lot of women are worried about it in pregnancy. And the worries that I hear are, will I be able to? Because they have a past history in their family. It was hard for their mom or hard for their sisters or their friends. Will I have enough milk? My breasts are small. I'm flat chested. Will I have any? So it's really about the will I be able to?
Yeah, and I would say that the vast majority, I don't even know what percentages are, but maybe 98% of women can eventually physically breastfeed. There are a small number of women who don't produce enough milk. But that's a very, very tight, if there's an issue with the ducts not being properly developed, it's such a small amount of the population. It means that even though it's not necessarily easy in the beginning for some people, if you're well supported, you can eventually get to exclusive breastfeeding most of the time. So I say to not worry. Yeah, you'll probably be able to, and to go into it, thinking positively. And then I guess now I'll just say the preventative or the preparation that I do encourage our students and clients to take is to know who to call if it's not going well, and to not dilly-dally, because when baby's not eating, life sucks. Like, it's just your postpartum is that much more difficult. Your baby needs to be eating, and if your baby's not eating breast milk, your baby still needs to be eating. Or if your baby's not breastfeeding, your baby can still be drinking your breast milk. Even if baby doesn't take a bottle, we can cup feed, we can tube feed. There's a lot of things that we can do. So I would say, and maybe you can add, Sylvia, if I forget anything, but if you're in Montreal or in Quebec, Nourrisource is our favorite go-to resource. It's a mom-to-mom support group that Sylvia and I have had volunteered for many, many years. So it's moms who have been through their own breastfeeding journey and then take a certain amount of training to then be able to support over the phone. And Nourrisource now is also doing online drop-ins during COVID.
Very nice. And our colleague Mika, she is a Nourrisource fairy godmother in NDG, and she said there's a training, an English training happening. So for those listening who might already be past all the challenges and who want to help, and you might really be a great breastfeeding advocate and something that you love really, and you hold dear to you, you can sign up. So I'm going to put a link in the comments once the show is done to the Nourrisource site, because it's coming up, I believe, in March. And they're always looking for breastfeeding support moms. And it's such a
nice way to pay it forward for those of us who had help from Nourrisource. It's nice to be able to. And then a Nourrisource support mom will refer to an international board certified lactation consultant, IBCLC, if there's something outside of their scope. But often those little snags in the beginning can when you have somebody who has experience to troubleshoot with, you can often resolve that stuff. Usually there's not much going on. It's just a positioning issue or something that can be easily fixed with a little bit of support.
Yeah, it's true. And yeah, I love being that support person for other people as well. And sometimes just a quick call. And sometimes you're not even helping with the breastfeeding. It's just like, they just need someone to call. It's not your doctor that you talk about this, but we try different things, and we don't diagnose. But it's a great resource. So get on their list now. If you are expecting, you can call call, and then they will match you up with someone pregnant. Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, and I do say in our classes, Jenny, I'm not going to talk 5 hours of breastfeeding because it's really vague when you don't have a baby and you're not engorged with milk and your milk hasn't come in. And, it's once all of that happens, once the baby is born and you are starting to feed, that's when we'll know what's happening and
Otherwise, it's pretty abstract.
It is, so I mean, you can watch it. Another couple of resources I like to give out are the Jack Newman website. Jack Newman is a Canadian pediatrician out in Toronto, and he's got it's really now, he used to be with the sick kids, and now he's really got his own breastfeeding clinic, which is funny. He's a guy, what does he know? But he knows a lot, and he helps a lot of women. And he is a strong advocate. And go on his Facebook page. He writes long things, and he writes them himself. I mean, you can tell the tone, and very helpful.
Kellymom.com is another good website too. And that is a website that's been around since my time of nursing. And it's not, it doesn't look super pro, but the articles on kellymom.com are really, really great.
Yeah. So I think going into it with that, okay, I just, go into it thinking it's going to work. It's going to work. And if if I have issues along the way, there are lots of resources. There are your doulas, there are the nurses, the CLSC nurse, there's Jack Newman, there's Kelly, there's lots of resources.
So we wanted to talk about some of the snags, and try not to laugh too much, because this is, again, like, we're out of it, but some of the terrible things that you can get into that you don't realize are even a possibility. And maybe one of these things will happen one time, but that one time it happens, it's nice to be able to clue into what that is. So I'm thinking we could talk about thrush.
Sure. Go for it.
Yucky one. I had that only one time. I also was a cloth diapering mom, and I also had, reusable breast pads. So if you're not familiar with that, usually milk just keeps leaking and leaking. So you need to put a pad in your bra. You can have disposable ones or cloth ones. Anyway, if you end up with thrush, which is a yeast infection in baby's mouth, to your nipple, into the diapers, into everything, it can be quite a nightmare to get rid of. So if you do end up with thrush, some of the signs, sometimes you can be experiencing pain, and you're not really sure what the heck the pain is, and it can take some troubleshooting to figure it out. One of the big signs of thrush is not a white tongue. Usually if baby has a white tongue, it's just a milk tongue and it's normal. But if you see cottage cheesy kind of stuff on the inside of baby's cheeks,
Yeah, in the
that,
back. Yeah, at the
yeah.
back of the mouth. Mm.
There are easy enough solutions for clearing the infection up. You're going to want to see the doctor for sure, and it usually ends up being something like Canestin that you're going to be using, actually yeast infection cream. There's also a natural product that is hard to find. I haven't even come across many moms who have looked for it recently. It's called gentian violet, and it's this purple substance you can get at some of the pharmacies. Did you ever use that, Sylvia?
I never had thrush, but our Yvonne Pelling was a doula with our group, and she had it, and she said it you have to be careful because it stains everything, the baby's mouth, clothing, and
It's super intense. It's very cute. You have these. If you Google gentian violet breastfeeding, you'll see pictures of babies with purple mouths. And I think it's not something the doctors tend to recommend. It's probably, it's a little bit more on the crunchy naturopathic side. But I did have good success with it. And then the other product I'll mention, grapefruit seed extract. You can get
yes.
that at the health food stores, and that was instrumental in helping me clear everything out of the diapers and the fabrics and stuff that we had to get rid of. So you have to put many drops in the washing machine.
Because what happens with thrush, you'll say, "Oh, I got it out of the baby's mouth, but then I've got it, so I'm passing it back. Baby passes it to me, my nipples." So it's just it can be frustrating. So kind of nip it in the bud.
Yeah, and sometimes it's going on for a long time, and you just haven't clued into what it is. That happens a lot, especially in the postpartum fog. So thrush. What else? What else can be a big issue?
I had cracked and bleeding nipples at the beginning, in the literally the first hour, Jenny. Like I put Tristan on the breast for too long and left him there thinking he was feeding, and it's that glorious, couple hours after birth when you go to the postpartum when they leave you alone, finally. And I just left him there. He was so cute, and but he really was just nibbling, and
nibbling on your nipple. I can see that it's just what we need.
This for an hour on you, and it should be this. It should be big, big, wide,
Nibbling on anything. Baby is not going to get any milk out of the very tip of your nipple. That little nipple needs to be. If you put your tongue to the soft palate, the nipple needs to touch that way back there. So they need a big hamburger-sized opening.
Yeah. Well, he didn't, and no one told me. So at 3 weeks, after that, it started cracking and bleeding, and for things like that, there was this, a cream. I was putting colostrum and then breast milk on it, and what I say, people, it got worse, but then started getting better. But it did take 3 weeks to heal. So I can see why some moms would say, "Oh gosh," after a few days of that, because my toes were going, "Ooh," every time I put them on the breast.
There's a trauma, and then it becomes this fear thing where your kid needs to eat, but then you're like dreading that, so then you tense up, and then it hurts even more.
Yeah.
With cracked nipples, there could be just that one crappy lapse that Sylvia's talking about, or leaving him on there for too long. Sometimes and oftentimes when we see this, it's tongue tie. So not to diagnose any baby with tongue tie, but in our little half an hour show, we're trying to just throw these terms at you. So if you end up in those situations, you can maybe look into it. But a tongue tie under or the frenulum on top can cause cracked and bleeding nipples at the very, very beginning. That was my issue with my girl. And my God, it hurts.
We're going to have a dentist come on, a friend of mine, Jennifer. She's going to come on in a couple of weeks, and we'll get that. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be all about, tongue ties and
it's so important. But I would say if you do end up, so some of the solutions are not, oh my God, I'm having like PTSD. So the cream I think that Sylvia is probably talking about is Magic Cream. She already mentioned Dr. Jack Newman. So he has this cream called Apno, APNO cream. It's a special blend. It's the big guns. It is antibiotic cream. It's safe for baby to be able to, so you can put it on the cracked nipple. Baby can then drink milk, and it's not going to, as far as we know, harm baby. That is something that is really nice to have, not to preemptively get a prescription, but if you're having cracks in the very beginning, get on it with that. The really natural and super effective thing to do too is, as Sylvia said, either colostrum, which is the very, very first milk before your white milk comes in, and or just your regular breast milk. You let some soak on the breast, and you just, you air dry like this. It can it's antibacterial, and it can in terms of like lanolin creams and this kind of thing, there are many companies that never felt like it was super useful. Some people like it because it's a little bit of a barrier. You definitely don't need to always be putting that on. I think the breast milk as a first shot, and then if things are really not great, the Apnel cream usually has very, very good.
Well, breast milk, for those, if you're pregnant and listening to this, breast milk is antifungal, antibacterial, antiviral. It is like nature's gold. It's nature's polysporin, I like to call it too. It's really that, is a go-to. Even if, Jenny, if you had a cut on your hand and you were lactating, a couple squirts on on your hand,
Legit, even like your husband has a bobo, just
squirt it. He's got an eye infection.
I had not that long ago. My kid woke up, and she's always had this weird thing with her left eye. Her left eye is just, and she often wakes up and it's red still at 10 years old, and it's never been pink eye. But I had this moment in my head. I was like, okay, thinking of all the postpartum clients I had, and I was like, okay, which of these clients would be the least likely to think I was totally weird if I asked her for some breast milk? Because you can use breast milk to clear up pink eye. Yeah. You can use it for all these things. It's magic medicine. So yeah, if there's cracking, if you have if the latch is poor and then you start to see any ridges, those ridges eventually turn into cuts if you don't, so you can then take a break. This is Sylvia and myself, we don't recommend necessarily buying a pump before, in prenatally. I don't think everybody needs to have a pump, but this is one time where having a breast pump can be really, really helpful. If you're taking a break from an injured nipple, you want it, so then you're nursing just on your left side because there's trauma to the right side. You still need to be making milk on the left side, and usually the pump feels a little bit better than baby's mouth at that point.
Yeah, well, you can just place it exactly in the middle. You place your nipple right in the middle, so it's not being aggravated by anything, right? So it's still not comfortable. However, you can take a break for an occasional feeding here and then and that's what I remember doing, just taking okay, this time I'm just going to leave this side for now. But, you don't want to stop your production, because if you do stop for prolonged, even a couple of days, that's just signaling to your body to not make milk. So you want to be careful with that. So we do say at least manually express it out or pump it out, but still allowing your body to produce it.
I would say another possible solution, which the lactation consultants usually do not like this solution, but I am convinced it saved my breastfeeding, was the CLST nurse gave me do you know what I'm going to say?
I was going to say a nipple shield.
A nipple shield. So it's a silicone shield that is a barrier that you can put on top of the nipple. Then you can't feel that terrible sensation as much. There's a whole slew of issues that, it can cut down on production on that side. You then can develop a dependence on it because it's much more firm. So I did use it. And then, feeding at night becomes really difficult because you have to wash the thing, and then feeding in public becomes really difficult. And then you have to wean off of the nipple shield, although some people use them throughout their entire breastfeeding. But I think in terms of a short-term solution, it can be really effective, and you can usually find them at some of the bigger pharmacies. They come in different sizes, so I wouldn't rush to use that, but just know that it's one more option if you have some trauma.
Yeah, and it really is trying different things, and not everything is permanent. That's what I like. Once we get the hang of certain things, it's not necessarily permanent. The shield, we can take it off, but at least if it gives you some sense of, less pain, why, let's try it. Another thing we encounter, I would say, blocked ducts was one that I did. I think that, I had the cracked nipple and I had a blocked duct at one point. And again, all with my first. And a blocked duct is where, your breast has a whole bunch of milk ducts around the breast. And one of them, the milk is not flowing through to the nipple, and it gets congealed into the duct. And that was so painful. There was one part of the upper breast here that was it was very hard. It was red and very hard. And just that, not the whole
red. It turned red.
It did, maybe because I was touching it a lot too, but and that you do want to take care of, because that can turn into mastitis, which is an infection. But you do want to get rid of it. And maybe, I think solutions for the blocked ducts are massage, going under the warm water and getting things to flow. But because it's congealed, it does come out like squiggly hard, like looking like yogurt or cottage cheese or something. And then I really had to massage. I had called La Leche League, which is another resource for breastfeeding. La Leche League leader, she had called me back, and then she said, put my breast into a warm bowl of water and soak it for 10-15 minutes. Well, to do that, I had to put the bowl on the floor, and then, you lean over the bowl, and you're I guess naked from the top up. And then JP, my husband, walks home. He comes on the door, he walks through the door. He's like, what the heck are you doing? I said, I've got this blocked duct. I've got my boob in a bowl. And then with the massage, and then getting my son to keep feeding on that side.
Crucial to that too, to keep, and you can kind of angle, if you've seen any weird, we have in our Rock the Cradle manual, I always laugh when I'm teaching the class, because we have different positions that you can have baby in, and one of them is the over the shoulder one, which the picture looks so stupid. Like, why on earth would you put a kid over your shoulder to nurse them? But it's specifically for that reason. Because if you line the nose up with the blocked duct, then that can be a solution. But
the babies, the suction is stronger with the chin. I read in some places that doesn't help. Don't do that. But actually, that's what saved me. I got Tristan in this funny. I actually didn't get him like that. What I did was put him on the floor, and then, like a mama wolf, I positioned myself over him so that his chin was facing up, right? And then probably JP walked in on me there, like, what the heck you doing? What's this? It was too funny.
But yeah, so that the plug ducts, I had plug ducts. Some people have reoccurring plug ducts. A product that you can get in the vitamin section is lecithin. So if you have reoccurring plug ducts, there's different kinds of lecithin that you might consider taking. And phytolacca, if you're into homeopathy, phytolacca is the one that can help with the reoccurring blocked ducts. Don't mess around. I had a blocked duct that turned into mastitis because I was so stubborn, and I stayed home. And at some point, I was on the floor, like half dead, with a mastitis infection.
You don't want to
drag me to the doctor. So if you have mastitis, I've had clients recently where, because of my baggage and that particular story, I'd be like, if there's a sign of fever, or like when Sylvia said red, like if the breast is turning red, that can be a sign that, okay, we're heading into mastitis territory. You at least want to go consult. If you're not able to take care of it and you have a fever, go consult. What often happens is you'll get antibiotics, and the doctor will often say, give it however amount of time if you still have your fever, but it often resolves on its own if you're continuing to feed. So a mastitis infection, from what I've seen, does not necessarily mean that you need to, obviously everyone wants to avoid antibiotics if possible, for many reasons, but it doesn't always equal. But if you can at least have that medication there, so it's not 4 a.m. and you're like, feel like you're half dead. Block duct to mastitis to what is the next step, which is really terrible that we don't want to go there. I can't remember the really bad word. It's a very bad infection. Anyway,
I thought it was mastitis.
No, after mastitis. It's like, it's a bad, anyway, I can't think of the term, but we don't want to go there. So if you're having any of those issues, take care of them as soon as you can. And if you're a little foggy and not sure what's going on, that's when you have your postpartum doulas, or you have your nourrisseuse, or your La Leche League person, or maybe you already have a lactation consultant, or the doctor or pediatrician.
Yeah, lots of resources. So do look into them and have the names ahead of time, at least, or one of two. I think that's a great thing to do while you're prepping, and what you can, if you like to be active and proactive, and don't worry, another advice, don't worry about these things before they happen, because, we could just, your mind will spiral, and it doesn't need to. Because like I really had three babies and breastfed, I don't know, 4.5 years or so. And I really had one blocked duct, and I had that cracked and bleeding nipple at the beginning. With my girls, everything was so much easier. I don't know. For me, I felt very lucky. They just fed faster and quicker. I had so much more time. They were good feeders. They gained weight, and we only have a couple more minutes left. But one other issue, people I talk to, overproduction seems to be. It's funny, we think underproduction, but there's overproduction as well of the breastfeeding.
For a time being, usually everything kind of kind of balances itself out. But for sure, there are moms like, I'm making too much milk and my baby's choking on it.
Yeah, and they choke on it. That could be something. One position, a quick solution for that would be lying back and having baby lie back on you in this biological breastfeeding position. But again, reach out if these are issues that if you're having. Jenny is our Rock the Cradle postpartum doula, and she prepares yummy meals and goes to your house and helps with all of these issues. So if it's something that you would like to look into, please give us a call. Give us a call here. We've got our website, jennybyoga.com, and Rock the Cradle. Rock the Cradle, we have an online class, and I have the modules for breastfeeding. So I'm going to put the link to that in the chat there, and you can look. It's like 4 modules, all online. You do it yourself. And if not, we have in-person prenatal classes. Well, in person on Zoom.
Interactive, live and interactive. And they're amazing classes that we both teach.
Yes, and of course, join Jenny. She's got a lot of amazing yoga classes to prep, and she does talk about these things and get you prepared for the most beautiful and positive birth possible. That's all we have for today, I believe.
God, we were so efficient. We were like, I only had 1 coffee, and I still feel like I'm. This is fun. The thing is, we both have something that we need to do at noon every Friday. So you're lucky that we don't just ramble on anymore for 45 minutes.
I did feel we had direction today, Jenny. Have a great weekend, everybody. Reach out if you are having issues or not. We just want to know how you're doing. Let us know. We'll talk to you in 2 weeks. Bye.